say right now and right now and right now. And I'm like, who was I 3 seconds ago? Am I being different now? And sometimes when I just sit in quiet, I'll be like, am I better than I was 10 minutes ago? Does it matter? Do I have to be better? Do I have to be different? Am I okay with who I'm being right now?
Welcome back, everyone, to Being in Medicine. We are so excited today. On this episode, we have Cari Rickabaugh with us. She is a life coach, a licensed massage therapist, a master body worker. She is all of the things, and we're happy to have her join us today as we talk about being in medicine. So welcome, Cari. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Well, this podcast is about being in medicine, right? It's about who we are as human beings and how we show up for each other. And so your website is called Resilience, Mind, and Body Coaching. So my question for you is, what first awakened you to the importance of resilience as a way of being rather than just a skill? What is it about resilience that had you choose that?
It was from my own personal experiences, actually, of having to learn what resilience was and learning what an important part it played in my becoming, in my being, in figuring out who I was.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about that experience. Tell us more. Give us some info in that.
Sure. So I was raised in a home that was not great. There was a lot of abuse of different forms going on.
Sure.
And there was a lot that as a child I had to kind of shove so far down inside of me that I couldn't remember it. And then about 12 or 13 is when I started remembering certain things that were happening at the time. And I lived about 30 years playing this role in my family that played into that toxicity and that abuse. And so I had all these beliefs about myself based upon the abuse that had happened, based upon the beliefs that had given to me, based upon, thoughts that I had formed about myself. And growing up in a home where we really had to play roles. We weren't allowed to be ourselves. I got out into the world as an adult and had no idea how to be me, and had no idea I had a choice that I could do anything in this world that I wanted to. And so I lived as a victim of life.
Yeah.
So anything that happened to me, it was horrible, poor me. I never get anywhere. And it after about 4 decades, it got really scary. Yeah. And I got to a place where I was ready to end my life.
Wow.
And this miracle, which in the form of a phone call, a friend of mine called and said, I need you to talk to this friend of mine. And I had been through 3 therapists and none of them could help me. And they all thought within 12 weeks I should be good to go and shooed me out the door. And I thought I was too broken to be helped. And so this friend wouldn't let me off the phone until I talked to our good friend, Dave Orton. And, that's where things changed for me and healing occurred because I found out I had choices. I found out what being was about. I was able to address and process my trauma, and it changed my entire life.
Wow, that's amazing. So tell us, what is being about to you? What is that for you?
Being for me is a choice.
Yeah.
So it's that first and foremost, it's the choice that I make of who to be, how to be, where to be, when to be in every moment of every day. And so before, where I was the victim, where things were happening to me and I didn't have any choice in that, now things happen because I choose them to happen. Or as a result of maybe I made a choice that wasn't so great and I pay consequences for it. But everything is the result of a choice, and I get to choose who and how I'm going to be every moment of every day.
Yeah. I can imagine that the awareness of that as you were working through that with your friend and with Dave was quite life altering for you when you came to that awareness. Tell us about that moment when that started to come to you. Was it coming to you in a moment, or was it coming to you over the course of time? Tell us about that.
It was a length of time. There was almost a year where we were working on just trauma resolution. And then at that point, Dave said, I think we need to start moving forward, which is more of the coaching aspect of it and creating and deciding what you want. And I kept saying, no, I'm not ready. Yeah. I don't know why, but I'm not. And we kind of sat in this holding pattern for a month until all of these memories of the first 10 years of my life of just horrific abuse surfaced.
Yeah.
And it was because we had uncovered everything else that there was finally a space for this to come. And so once all of this surfaced and I started, accepting it and processing it and wrapping my head around it, Dave kept talking about there's possibility for anything. And that abuse is what had kept me in my thinking of black, white, like things happen this way or they're not this way, and I couldn't work on possibility. I couldn't imagine possibility. We actually started with the possibility of there being possibility. Wow. And so that was really where the shift came in once I had started to let go of what was no longer serving me in terms of memories and experiences and things like that. And then allowed myself to believe in that anything was possible. Wow. And it took a while. It took quite a while. But once you start stepping into it and you start seeing how you can be different, that's a shift. It's a huge shift.
Yeah. So I suspect that drives a fair amount of what you do for folks in your coaching now, that experience, right?
It does.
How do you embody that resilience versus just teaching it as a skill? Is there something that resonates for you and how to do that, or how do you help people do that?
So I'm a massage therapist. Like you said, I've been a massage therapist for 24 years now. And I have helped people for 2.5 decades in terms of, I'm not the kind of massage therapist where what I call a fluff and buff. So you come and you relax and there's nice music playing and you fall asleep and you feel good for it. That's not what I do at all. I am very much like sports, rehabilitative, injury. We're going to get down to the core of what's wrong, and it's probably going to hurt like hell. And then we're going to get you functioning better on a long term.
Right.
So now I've done energy work with that for 24 years. And now that I started coaching, I work a lot with people who have trauma or have blocks from trauma that they don't remember. Yeah. And I don't teach them anything. We get to the core. I help them find out what their blocks are based in, what beliefs are based in, and then they get to decide what is best for them and how they're going to go forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. Jeff and I were talking just this morning about how often we aren't teaching people something that they don't already understand or know. We're just finding a way for them to experience it themselves, to open themselves up to what's that like. Jeff, more to say on that topic?
Oh, I agree with what you said, Corey. I do have a question though for Cari. Being, as I took it, being for you means conscious choice of who to be, when to be, where to be, how to be. Yeah. Is there a baseline foundation that you're coming from that is the Cari that's always the Cari, or is it a constant choice, or how does that look for you?
That's a great question. There is a baseline, which I call the authentic Cari. And at the same time, I'm still learning who the authentic Cari is. Yeah. Because when you talk about imposter syndrome, for me, it was intensified because who I sometimes feel that I am is who I would pretend to be when I was growing up, the person that I wanted to be. So sometimes I actually wonder, am I actually still pretending? Because it's the same feeling. It's I'm stepping into something. Before it was because that's what I had to do. Now it's because it's a choice. And sometimes those lines get blurred. Yeah. And so it's figuring out when there's no validation, when there's nobody watching, when there's nobody listening to anything, who am I being, like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What do I want? What do I don't want?
Yeah.
Finding that authenticity and then saying, okay, how do I want to build on that? And what do I want to build from that? So it is a baseline, but it's still being developed.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Even seeing that we all tend to play roles or have been domesticated or socialized into playing roles, even seeing that as a possibility, and then choosing who you want to be, and then an inquiry about, am I playing a role? Is this a program? Or am I being who I choose to be? That's brilliant how you put that together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I know a lot of people choose a word for a year for like to hold to them and like step into throughout the year. And I tend to choose mottos. And my motto this year, and I'll be honest, I don't even know where it came from, but my motto for this year is do it scared, which is something that would challenge me, because before I would always fear the scary. And now it's like I choose to step into it. And when I step into it, I find out it's usually not as scary as I thought it was. And so it really helps develop my ability to just start to choose to step into things faster and faster versus ruminating about the possibility of what could go wrong. Let's step into it and find out what goes right.
Yeah. That's brilliant. Just I love the way that you put that into language around just the awareness of stepping into it. And I just really acknowledge you for stretching yourself with what is scary and moving yourself in that direction.
Thank
And
you.
so possibility, what an amazing word, right? Tell us a little bit more how that plays a role in your life now. Possibility.
It means anything is an option to me.
Yeah.
Every door is open, and sometimes it's cracked and sometimes it's wide open, but every single door is open, and I can step into and be and become anybody I want to, and I can do anything I want to, and I can actually learn to do things that I don't want to do, and be grateful that I can do them. I run. I kind of look like a gazelle. Like, it's not graceful, and but I run, and running is something I've always hated. And I have started running in the past year, and I found that I still hate it. And when I get done with it, I love the fact that I did it.
Yeah.
And that pushes me to do it because I love that feeling that I get at the end of it.
Absolutely.
And so I can learn to love things that I don't love. Like, it's the and concept of, I can love something that I don't love at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine, tell us a little bit about the trauma work, a little more of the trauma work that you went through and what you help people go through. Tell us what that experience is like for you personally to help people through their trauma.
My trauma was very extensive. There was a lot of somatic work that we did. So very much tapping into the body and saying, what am I feeling right now? Not what am I thinking? What am I feeling?
Mm-hmm.
And I had this response because of abuse that I had been through at a very young age, where my body would go head to toe numb. And I didn't know that wasn't normal. I didn't know that wasn't how everybody, reacted. And it was so frustrating to Dave when we started coaching, because he'd say, what do you feel? And I'm like, frustration and rage and sadness. And he's like, no, those are emotions. What do you feel? And I'm like, I don't feel anything.
Yeah.
And it took us a while to be able to get to a point where something would happen and I'd be like, oh, I feel that in my shoulder and going down my right side. And I'm like, oh, I feel something. And it's just, then something would happen that was similar and it would happen later. And I'm like, oh, there's that same feeling. And I learned how to identify, is it inside of me? Is it outside of me? Is it a shape? Is it a color? Is it, all of these different things.
Yeah.
But when you can feel something, that's how you can process stuff. I actually just got off a call with a client who has this block around money. And she's actually a potential client. She wants to work with me, but she said to me at first, I have this block around money. How much is it going to cost? And I was like, all right, we're going to start right now before you're even signed as a client. And I told her my prices and we talked about some things. And she texted me the next day and said, looking at your prices just makes me want to give up and just not even think about doing this. And I texted her back and I said, isn't it funny how your nervous system doesn't want you to do something, to spend money to do something to help you get over the block of spending money. And she texted me back later that night and said, yeah, I've been thinking about that all day. She goes, I'm going to have to spend money to get over my block of spending money. And I said, yeah, kind of. That's the best way to do it. I mean, you can go around it or go right through it. And so we had a call, and I did some somatic work with her and just said, when I say you don't have any money and you're in scarcity and all the money's gone, and none of which was true, she started getting really anxious. And I said, we're just going to sit in it. We're going to feel it.
Yeah.
And you're going to feel it till you don't feel it anymore. And then next time you're going to feel it again, and we're going to feel it till you don't feel it anymore. And then afterwards, and Dave did this so much with me. Afterwards, I was like, hey, what's changed? Because you just felt that and you went through it, and what's changed? And she said, nothing. I'm still in the same seat. I still have money in the bank. And I'm like, yeah, it's just the realization that your feelings are not the truth, and your thoughts about things are not always the truth.
Absolutely.
And so I went through, 2.5 years of that with Dave, of just every thought, every belief, every experience going into the somatic. And then we did some NLP work as well, and went back and reframed memories, and then worked through the feelings. And so that was my experience. And that's what I tend to take a lot of my clients through as well, is just what goes on in the body.
What goes in the body. Absolutely. And prior to doing that work, you were feeling a lot of things, right? A lot of things were coming at you for your health, I would suspect, right? And tell us a little bit about that for you. What was coming up for you health-wise as you were going through this work of trauma and reliving these memories and things coming back to you? How did all that coincide together?
So the first thing that I was diagnosed with was epilepsy. And this was 7 years ago, right around there, when they didn't have they didn't know as much about it. And so I started having seizures when I was 20 years old. And so the first time they didn't even really believe it was a seizure. And so they just said, go home. If it happens again, let us know. And so the second time somebody witnessed it, and it was a different type of seizure. And so went back to the hospital again, and they said, they ran the gamut of tests, the MRIs, the EEGs, everything, and they could find absolutely nothing.
Right.
And so there's no family history of it, no head trauma as a kid, nothing that any of the medical professionals were looking for, right? And so they said, well, we'll put you on medication. I was on medication for a year, didn't have a seizure. They started to wean me off. As soon as I got off, started having them again. They said, we're going to put you on medication for the rest of your life. That was the first thing that I dealt with. The second thing, and even on medication, I would still have seizures. You guys know, lack of sleep, stress. But mine was different. It wasn't when I got tired, and it wasn't when I got stressed out. It was when I was coming down from that stress, or after I'd caught up on the sleep. And so I lived my life in some state of stress and tired just to not have seizures. And then after that, it was a couple of years later, a chiropractor initially said, do you know that you have fibromyalgia? And I said, I had no idea. And that really stayed dormant for about 15 years until I got into a car accident, and then it exploded. And within about 4 or 5 years, I had to give up my massage business. I could barely make it from my office to my bed every day, just moving.
Yeah.
It was horrifically painful. With that came chronic fatigue, and then polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS. And so all of these things were just, and that added to the, my life is always going to be horrible. That added to the victimness, that these things are happening to me, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And once Dave and I started doing the trauma work, it wasn't even conscious to me for probably like the first 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And suddenly I realized I haven't had a seizure in a while.
Wow.
And then I was like, oh, my chronic fatigue hasn't really been bothering me that much. And as we kept going, it became less and less and less. The PCOS every month wasn't as traumatic as it usually was. The seizures, I haven't had a seizure in over 3.5 years.
Wow.
And I couldn't go 2 or 3 months without having small seizures before. And
Yeah.
I ended up seeing a new neurologist probably about a year and a half ago. And she said, "Do you know what it's from?" And I said, "Trauma." And she said, "Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely." And so we're weaning me off the medication. We're not having any problems with that. The PCOS, the fibromyalgia, and the chronic fatigue only flare up every great once in a while. And so they've almost cured themselves. I started my massage business again. Again, I'm running, I'm cold plunging, I'm doing all of these physical things that would have physically been impossible before.
Wow. That's an amazing story, first off. And I acknowledge you for all the work that you did to get to that point, to create awareness around that, and then to obviously begin the process of forgiveness of yourself and forgiving, and to creating awareness and feeling those things, and to create the space to do that. So amazing work on your end, Cari. That's just phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so part of my practice is teaching people that the body keeps the score. There's a book out there that, it's very famous, that Body Keeps the Score. And it truly, truly does.
Yeah.
I held everything within me, every negative thought, feeling, word that was said to me. I didn't know that wasn't normal, because we weren't allowed to express ourselves. We weren't allowed to ask questions or have an opinion. And it eats up your organs. It damages your muscles. It has to go somewhere. And so it goes right inside of you. And if you can, let that free and process it and let it go, your health I've seen people's health just skyrocket from processing trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your thoughts on trauma, right? Because people experience things throughout their life, and unless they do this work, they hold on to it, right? The body keeps the score, right? And so whether it's a lot of trauma or a little bit of trauma, that's really not something to decide, right? Everybody has things in life that they go through. I'm imagining that you work with people from all different scopes of types of trauma and things of that nature. Do you find that this work is useful for all folks that have had things in their life that they're holding on to?
Yeah. I mean, there's some people whose trauma is a teacher yelled at them when they were 5 years old, and that's what they've held on to, and that was traumatic for them. And that's not any more traumatic or less traumatic than anything that anybody else has been through. It's based upon our experiences around those things that happen to us as trauma. So if that is normal, if those things happen a lot, then generally people aren't affected. And if they come from this loving household and somebody does something cruel to them, that is very traumatic to them.
Yeah.
But it's really holding up this light on their blind spots of these are the habituals. I had another client earlier today who had said something to me about this is right or this is wrong, this. And I said, what if this just is? And he goes, but it's right or wrong. He was talking about like his getting to his potential. And I said, so what is your judgment about right or wrong? And he said, I don't judge right or wrong. He goes, it just is. And I said, do you know that you just said to me twice, you had to do the right thing. You can't do the wrong thing. You said right or wrong twice. And he goes, I didn't even realize I said that. And I said, there's so much unconscious that we just inherit or develop when we're so young.
Right.
That we don't even realize we're doing. I used to apologize all the time for everything. And when somebody would say, don't apologize, I'd be like, sorry, I don't mean to apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. And I didn't even realize I was doing it because it was just so inherent in me. And so it's holding that light up to people and just making them aware, and then saying, you have options. You can do whatever you want with this. You can keep doing this. You can change it. You can judge it. You can forgive it. You can do whatever you want with it. It's your choice.
Yeah. How big of a role does forgiveness play in the trauma work?
It's, at least in my experience, massive amounts of experience requires forgiveness. And sometimes it's forgiveness of ourselves, and sometimes it's forgiveness of somebody or something else, or sometimes just a situation that nobody's really at fault for, or it's essential.
Yeah. I think forgiveness is, it's a a part of something that we don't spend as much time on as we should, understanding self-forgiveness and just forgiveness in general. Jeff and I have talked about that on numerous occasions, just self-forgiveness and what that looks like. And Jeff, any insight into the forgiveness lane that we've found ourselves in today?
Well, I think, as you pointed out, forgiveness is very powerful. Forgiveness and blessings, I think, are some of our most powerful thought-created ideas. And self-forgiveness is hard.
Yeah.
For some reason or another, it's a lot easier to forgive other people for things that we can forgive ourselves for. I think we're more judgmental of ourselves than anyone. And a lot of that starts with awareness. And you've demonstrated a very high level of awareness, meta awareness, really.
Yeah.
Loving what you don't love, the possibility of possibility, seeing things in others and bringing it to the light. So it just creates that level of awareness and allowing people to choose what to do with it. But if you're not even aware of it, it's not even a choice.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. So working with your clients, or actually, let's just stick with you a little bit. I'm sure you've created a lot when you were prior to doing the work, you were having these illnesses, these diagnoses that were coming up for you. Did you find yourself creating a lot of, I'm sure you did, what most of us do, creating stories around those diagnoses. And then once you came to the realization that there's some work to be done here, and, how was that forgiveness process? What did that look like for you?
There was a lot of self-anger because I didn't start the self-awareness process until I was 45.
Yeah.
And it had, because of all the stuff that I had experienced, especially the stuff I couldn't remember, was determining how I functioned and how I reacted and how I thought about things. And so as I got into my 20s and all my friends' lives started to progress and they were meeting people and dating and getting married and having kids, and my life didn't. It stayed the same because I stayed the same person. And it wasn't until I had met up with a friend that I met in my early 20s. I met up with him like 18 years later. Yeah. And I realized I am the exact same person that I was when we were in our 20s and we're now in our 40s, and you've completely changed.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of hating myself for that and what is wrong with me and why couldn't I see this and why couldn't I change? What is so wrong with me, and thinking that I was broken. And when you get to the point where you feel that you're so broken, that nothing can ever be better for you, it comes automatically. I think, at least for me, it came automatically with this self-degradation.
Yeah.
And how do you fight your way out of that when you're like, I could have done this 20 years ago and I can't go back and change that. Mm-hmm. And I want my life to be different. Why didn't I do this sooner? Why didn't I see this? And I didn't understand what grace was before I started this process, and giving myself permission to have made mistakes.
Yeah.
Even if it was 5 minutes ago or if it was 20 years ago, giving myself permission to only know and understand as much as I knew and understand at any given time.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do any better, because if I could have, I would have. I was doing the best I could.
Yeah.
And the best that I could didn't meet my own expectations. And that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. And it took me a long time to get to that point. But I've been able to now look back and say, I don't love or like or accept, I shouldn't say accept, respect all of the abuse that I went through. Mm-hmm. But I know if it had changed in my 20s, I know that my marriage would not have been good because of who I was being. I know if I had kids, I possibly would have raised them in a very verbally aggressive household. And that wouldn't have been great for them. And so I can look back and be like, here's some of the blessings. Even if I have to dig for them, here's some of the blessings of what happened, what I went through, why I didn't change, because now I can see these things.
Yeah.
And so now in a relationship, I can be a healthier version, because I look at so many other people who stayed in those same kind of mind frames, those unhealthy mind frames, and went through marriage after marriage after marriage. They, have all these kids that don't talk to them, or that they've, the relationship is severed in some way. And I'm like, I don't have that. I don't have that. I get to create that all new still.
This comes back to being.
Yeah.
Right. Being as a verb, being as a present tense verb is like, who am I being now? Who am I being right now, right here?
Right.
Not who was I being then, because that's behind me.
Right.
And I love how Dave says it. He used to say it a lot. He would say, right now, and right now, and right now. And I'm like, who was I 3 seconds ago? Am I being different now? And sometimes when I just sit in quiet, I'll be like, am I better than I was 10 minutes ago? Does it matter? Do I have to be better? Do I have to be different? Am I okay with who I'm being right now?
Right. That's
and so Jeff, it is a very conscious, immediate thing. The past is always going to be in the past, and the future is always going to be the future, because if we get to the future, it's the present. So we're going to always have a future.
Right.
And the only thing that's real and is really happening is right this second.
Right now in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only place and time we can be is right here, right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. What a great, and right now, what a great way. Good job. That's excellent language for that, Cari. Thank you for doing that. Mm.
Yeah.
And so you've spent some time, obviously a lot of time, on yourself and doing the work, getting into the work, right? And now you're standing at a point where there's possibility. But recently, and if you're okay with me going into this, we were at an event together, right? And you had an experience at this event called the Ultimate Experience, right? That's the event. But it was a very powerful experience that we all shared. Would you mind sharing with us, reliving that for a moment with us?
Let me clarify. I'm assuming you're talking about the nest.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. So as you know, I spoke with Jim on the second day of the event, right?
Yeah.
And we got up on stage and spoke. And later that night, our friend Alok Appadurai, I think is how you say his last name.
Yeah.
Texted me, and he and I knew each other, but we'd never we were not text friends. He texted me and said, "Would you be open to more receiving? If you are, I can't tell you what's going to happen. You're just going to have to trust me. Yeah. If you're not, that's totally fine." And this was I don't know, 10:30 at night that I got this text. And I was like, sure, I trust you. Why not? Let's see what this is. Stepping into possibility again.
Yeah.
And he called me up on stage the next morning when he spoke, and I had no idea what to expect, but he created this space where he had me standing in front of the stage.
Yeah.
And he had every male in the room come up and surround me and either be placing a hand on me or be placing a hand on the person next to them. So there was a direct line to me. And let me go back a little bit. And when Jim and I spoke on Saturday, it was part of what I was saying to everybody was telling the story of the first 10 years, which was sexual abuse by a family member.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of heaviness around me and men, and distance between me and men, and that I wasn't even fully aware of.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had every male in the room who wanted to come up and connect themselves to me, and then said, I would call it a prayer. I don't know what he calls it. He spoke these absolute beautiful words.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you guys would be able to speak to it better than I could. It was just this energetic amount of healing that just came to me, that was directed to me. And it was, I don't know how to explain it. I don't have words for it, to be honest. It was this incredible experience of healing. There was so much healing. And I found out, I'm going to pivot for a second. I found out at last year's The Ultimate Experience that when I let stuff go energetically, like big, in terms of big things, that my body reacts and I get physically sick. So I didn't even make it to the second day of the conference because on the first day of the conference last year, I had let this huge amount of anger and bitterness go. And that's mostly stored in the gallbladder. And the second day, my gallbladder decided to just go crazy, right? And so when this happened, I was like, I can't let all of this go right now because I need to be here at the conference and I need to fly home in 2 days. And so I came home 2 days later and finally allowed myself to just start crying and release all this stuff. And I woke up the next day with pink eye in both eyes, a upper respiratory infection, and a sinus infection. Wow. And it took 2 rounds of double antibiotics to get rid of all of it because that experience had opened up a space in me that allowed me to feel it and let it all go. And I didn't have to hold on to it anymore.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful act that every man in that room did to come and help me heal.
Yeah. It was an amazing experience, and Alok just did a brilliant job of leading that and creating the safe environment for that to exist. And this is a big conference room with, 200 plus people in the room. I don't know how many people were at the event exactly, but, half of them males, perhaps. There was a lot of people in that room, and for Alok to take us through the process of creating this space where we could send energy to you and help with some of that trauma that you had experienced and help with you healing. It was a magical thing to be a part of and just a magical thing to witness. And I've just always been waiting to ask you about that experience and waiting to ask you about what has shifted for you since then. What did that open up anything else further for you? And what might that be?
I love it. I have a few pictures from it, and they are rotated on my screen saver right now. And Jeff, you're in the corner right now, so just warms my heart talking about it again. My relationship with most men in general, was very unhealthy, and that experience allowed me to step back in more of an energetic way than it was an actual physical way, to step back and say, it was a realization of almost like not every male is like my abuser.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that my nervous system had been holding on to, you have to protect yourself from every single male in your life. And so I would want to be in these friendships and relationships, and then I'd get in them and then I would destroy them because I would just, I would self-sabotage, because as soon as things started going good, well, there was something wrong. And as soon as something started going bad, there was something wrong. Like I could never find this even ground. And so I really self-sabotaged pretty much every relationship I was in. And I was able to step back and just let go of that thinking that not every male is capable of doing what this person did to you. And what I didn't know was I had Stockholm syndrome. I was diagnosed with Stockholm syndrome about 2.5 years ago. And so for anybody who doesn't know what that is, essentially it happens with a lot of women who are held captive, where your body, how would you guys explain it? You make that person, the person who hurt you, like the most important person in your life. And you learn to love them. And I had that for this person, not remembering that they had abused me.
Sure.
And so it was, I love people and I love men. And as soon as a guy got close to me, my nervous system would just be like, he's going to hurt you. He's going to hurt you. He's going to hurt you. And I couldn't, and it was difficult. It was difficult because it reinforced in my brain that I was broken.
Yeah.
But I was too broken that I couldn't have normal, healthy relationships. And so now it's interesting how naturally it started to change where after this event, I'd been working from home for 2.5 years. I had to go start working in an office for this company that I didn't know a single person there. And it's a warehouse. We sell construction supplies and fasteners, and it's all men in there. Yeah. And my relationships that I have now are so different than I've ever had before. And being a part of this community, the coaching community, also has helped. And that's a lot of the people who were there are part of the community, because there was somebody that I became friends with in this community, and I started to self-sabotage, and I was like trying to push him away. And he just said, not going to let you do that. It's not what we're going to do. And so I immediately turned around and found somebody else who had been wonderful. And I was just like, self-sabotaging, you can leave me. I suck. And they're like, we're not going to play that game either.
Right.
And it really helped me to just let go of so much of that unconscious fear around men.
Wow.
I want to express my gratitude for you having the courage to be in that vulnerable position, because that really was, for me, an ultimate experience. You know, the concept we can talk about love, that was an actual, direct, visceral experience of divine, infinite love.
Yeah.
And it's like when you talk about possibility, all there is possibility until we create limitations. All there is infinite love until we create not love. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Truly. Thank you for being a part of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it truly was amazing. And so I'm going to shift us a little bit back to kind of the medicine aspect of this in terms of the healthcare space, if that's all right. Because I do want to talk a little bit more about the diagnoses that you were given, right? And at some point you had been living into those diagnoses. They had become you, right? And then you had gone through this work, and now those diagnoses, you came to the realization that they weren't you, they were just something that your body was experiencing. And you did that through this work that you've been doing. And so have you found, or have you worked with people, and what is your experience in working with people to help them shed this concept that they are the diagnosis, but yet they're not really? It's just something that their body is experiencing. And then through the work, they're able to shift their mindset, and then they can be something different. Have you experienced that in other folks that you've worked with?
Yeah. People identify, and it's human nature. I think it's what we do is we identify with what our thoughts are, and we don't know that our thoughts aren't truth.
Yeah.
You know, that we're allowed to doubt our doubts. And so we think that makes up who we are. And that's all there is to it. This is how I was born. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And when you can get people to take that thought and put it in a box and shove it to the side and say, what's left?
Yeah.
Without this thought, what is there? Is there anger? Is there frustration? What's the feeling behind it? Because you wouldn't have this if you didn't have a feeling about it, right? Love is a feeling. Anger is a feeling. Frustration is there's feelings. Take the label of it, set it aside, and what's there. And then what is there? Why is it there? So let's go deep. Let's do some NLP. Let's do some somatic. Let's do just some meditating. Let's find out what that experience is. And when you can get people to put 2 and 2 together in terms of this experience is causing this feeling, or as a result, this feeling is a result of this experience, which means I don't have to hold on to it.
Yeah.
It's not a part of me. It's just sitting within me right now. I'm the box that's holding it. But let's take it out. Let's put it in another box. Let's shove it away. It opens up space for whatever you want to put there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Jeff, thoughts on that?
Oh, that just blew my mind. It gave me inspiration bomb. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. If, in terms of, I guess some people would say that working in or experiencing healthcare can sometimes be traumatic. Sometimes Jeff might say his residency and fellowship residency was traumatic. Here he is saying
that.
So we need to do some trauma work with Jeff. No, just
I don't know if Jeff can afford me. Just saying.
It'd be worth it.
it would be worth it. What things are there any things that you would advise people on? Something that can just help them, or some way in which they can experience what we're talking about working in the medical field? Like, is there any recommendation you would give a person working in the medical world around trauma and what it is to practice what you do? And do you have any advice for us lost souls working in the healthcare space, being
Lost
traumatic
soul.
from time to time?
Oh my goodness, you guys are saviors at
times.
First thing I would say is breathe. And that's what I tell everybody. Like, my massage clients get annoyed with it. My coaching clients get annoyed with it. Anytime something comes up that you're not familiar with or you're not sure what to do with, stop and breathe.
Yeah.
And once you breathe, and I always say, in through the nose, out through the mouth, like, smell the roses, blow out the candles. Like, just do that a couple times. And what it does is it brings you back into your body, because when you're faced with somebody acting a certain way or somebody doing something, say that you have a patient that's in their room. My mom was in town a couple years ago and was in the hospital, and there was a patient that was 2 doors down that just constantly screamed at the nurses all the time.
Yeah.
And people would walk by and be like, how can he be so rude? How can he be? And I'm like, that's all he knows.
Yeah.
Not that he's naive to what he's doing, but that is normal to him. And he's never been shown any different.
Yeah.
So just stop, breathe, and then say, is this about me, or is this about them? Are you yelling at me because I'm doing something wrong, or are you yelling because that's the only way that you've ever been taught to communicate?
Yeah.
And if we can just step back and give other people grace from time to time, it's amazing how other people can feel that, because they're used to people butting up against them and telling them that they're wrong and they're doing things aggressively, and they're not used to people often giving them grace. So much of what is done or said is because of trauma. Big T trauma, little t trauma, it doesn't matter. It's just they don't know any better.
Yeah.
You started out with the word resilience. I was wondering if you could put some more language around the word resilience and give us more insight into whatever domain of work we're in, but let's just say healthcare as an example, how to develop more resilience.
I love that you brought that back, Jeff. Thank you.
Yeah.
On my website, the first 2 words in there are resilience reimagined. And it is not I am fighting something that was horrible. So generally resilience, society-wise, we think, oh, you're going through things that are horrific and you're getting through them.
Mm-hmm.
What I've learned resilience is getting over everything. It's getting through the good things. It's getting through the difficult things. It's understanding why you're going through those things. What lesson can I learn from it? Mm-hmm. So if I go through all these horrible things that I did for 40, 45 years, resilience for me is not the fact that I'm still standing upright. It is, what am I learning from it? And how can I use that to make my life better going forward? So what I did is, I am grateful that I had difficult experiences, not necessarily grateful that I went through what I went through, but the fact that I spent so many years suffering from difficult experiences, because now I can see things in people and have an understanding for people that a lot of people can't have. When I spoke at the event in January, I had multiple women come up to me for the next day and a half and just throw their arms around me and say, I didn't know anybody else who had a childhood like I do. And I'm like, yeah, you do. We just are taught not to talk about it. And one person said to me, I didn't know I didn't have to carry this for the rest of my life. And I was like, this isn't yours to carry. This happened to you. You don't have to carry it. Right. And so resilience is just that understanding that you can get through anything and find some good from it to create moving forward.
Wow. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cari. Well, thank you for everything that you've done and all that you've taught us in the last hour or so. You are truly a demonstration of resilience, and it's just a pleasure to have you on, pleasure to talk to you. I love that you stand in possibility. I want to acknowledge you for that. And I just want to acknowledge you for having the courage to stand in that scary space that you did in January and allow all of us to really see love in action and love as a presence. And thank you for letting us be a part of that.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate both of you and what you do.
Absolutely.
Thank you,
have a great day. And thank you all for listening. Tune in next time to Being in Medicine.